Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the VA Home Show. We've got a very cool episode here for you today, and it is about renting versus buying. Something that it used to be kind of a no-brainer here about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I would say when I bought my first house, it was, I am getting this much in BAH.
Mm-hmm.
This is how much it is for renting.
Yep.
This is how much I'm going to save every month by buying a house. It was just it was easy.
It was easy.
Now,
Yep.
The math is not so cut and dry.
Yep.
Things are changing. BAH rates are up.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 2020 BAH rates here for you. We're really going to focus on the Camp Pendleton area.
Yeah.
We're going to focus on ranks E3 through E6,
Mm-hmm.
how much you will likely qualify for, because there are no more VA loan limits. It was interesting. Somebody shared a $1.8 million house the other day that was bought with no money down VA loan. Of course, you've got to qualify.
Yeah, you got to qualify.
So we're going to talk about what you're likely going to qualify for, what you are likely going to spend monthly, and what that translates to in buying power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and jump in?
Yeah, let's do it. So what we did was we pulled some of the 2020 VAH rates for the Camp Pendleton area.
Okay.
We thought that was a good base. So we did E3 through E5, and here's what we came up with, and we're going to share some prices with you too as far as what that gets you. So let's just start with E3, E4. So the BAH in the Camp Pendleton zip code was $23.88 per month. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So what does that equivalent to in house price?
Power.
Yep, $390,000.
It's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
So this is something that I would like for you guys to consider here, because really what we're looking at is, what does this break down to monthly?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to be in a situation where I will likely get equity? And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yep.
Is the actual cost of renting versus the possibility of getting some equity from your house.
Yep.
But more importantly, if you are an E3, an E4 in the
Mm-hmm.
Marine Corps, you have about, Lance Corporal, you have about $390,000 worth of purchasing power.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that going to get you something great in Oceanside? No,
Nope.
Probably not. Is it going to get you something really great in North County? No, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But can you go a little bit inland and look at Winchester, Wildemar,
Mm-hmm.
Murrieta, parts of Temecula, Menifee? Those are all great areas where,
They are.
you know,
We live in those areas,
that's where I live.
right? Right.
$390,000 is a lot of house. It's a lot of opportunity for you and your family.
It is.
So, and then what does it go up to from there?
Well, and just real quick before we
Yeah.
move on to that, $390 is a payment of about $23.75.
And that's what's important.
Yep, and that's what's important.
So what we're trying to determine here is, how much are you going to be spending monthly? And that's assuming that it is a low or no HOA situation,
Mhm.
and also that the taxes are reasonable.
Yeah.
So if you a $390,000 home in a community like Wolf Creek or Spencer's Crossing, where the tax rate is higher, the HOA is higher,
Mhm.
you're going to see that reflected in your monthly payment.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's going to help to be set up with a really great real estate agent who's going to help you look in some of those lower tax areas that are still nice areas. I live in a very low tax area in
Mhm.
Winchester.
Yeah.
And okay, so what does it bump up to from there?
So E5, $25.89,
Okay.
and the purchasing power goes up to $400,000.
So E5, Sergeant in the Marine Corps,
Mm-hmm.
your monthly BAH rate is $2,589 a
Mhm.
month, which translates to about $400,000 in buying power.
Yep.
$400,000 in, that is your buying power, what you could look at buying. And that's
Mhm.
assuming that you didn't go out and buy a Mustang your second week in the fleet,
Mhm.
and that you didn't go out and ruin your credit. Which, hey man, if you did something like that, there might be situations where you can get help and you can get adjusted and
Yeah.
whatnot. But right now, I'm assuming that you didn't make a stupid decision,
Mhm.
that you didn't overwhelm yourself with debt, and that is your actual purchasing power.
Yep.
Based on what you're going to qualify for. So $400,000 house. Now, here's the big jump. Going from E5, Sergeant in the Marine Corps, what is E5 in the Navy?
So E5 in the Navy is second class petty officer.
Second class. And then what about in the Air Force?
Staff sergeant.
Staff Sergeant. So Staff Sergeant, Sergeant,
Petty officer.
Petty Officer.
Yeah.
When you jump up from E5 to E6,
Mhm.
Staff Sergeant in the Marine Corps,
Tech sergeant.
Tech Sergeant,
First class petty officer.
First Class Petty Officer.
I know that makes you wanna laugh.
Whatever rank that you are, whatever branch that you're in, that's when the big jump comes.
Yeah, Absolutely.
exponentially. What is the monthly BAH rate for E6?
So it jumps up to $3,183. Wow.
$3,183. And I meet staff sergeants and I mean gunnery sergeants and I mean first sergeants that have never bought a house. And when you have been throwing away $3,000 a month in BAH, I mean, that's just sort of a killer.
Yep. So house price, you ready?
Yeah. So what does that translate to in purchasing power?
500,000.
500,000.
Yep.
That's no joke.
It's not.
$500,000 in purchasing power buys you a lot of house. Now, let me tell you this. I had a lot more purchasing power than where I decided to buy as a Lance Corporal. There was a lot of people telling me, you can afford more, you can qualify for more. And the truth is I was looking at it and I said, well, I'm also going to have bills. I'm going to have to pay for a monthly payment. So maybe you look at it and you say, well, what can I get for $360? What can I get for $350?
Yep.
And then you take that BAH and you put it towards your bills.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you have to be tapped out financially all the time.
Yep.
So that's what we talked about with the BAH. And this is what I would like to really discuss here is what does that mean for somebody that decides to rent versus buying? And we see a normal appreciation in a normal market of about 3%. You're going to break down that math here for us right now.
Absolutely.
But first, let's talk about if you are a corporal, a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, and you're getting a BAH of about $2,400 a month, $2,388. You're paying off someone else's mortgage. If you're renting, you're paying off someone else's mortgage. If you're living on base and you're one of those people who likes to go home at lunch, that's fine. But if you're willing to commute like I was, I drove from Winchester like you were.
Same here. Yeah.
We live in a really nice bedroom community. What that does is it creates a situation where you can now accumulate wealth versus paying off someone else's. So if you're paying off someone else's mortgage and you contribute $2,400 a month for 12 months, I mean, geez, let's do some quick math on that.
I know. Well, so a couple things here. So I wish those little things where I wish we could push the button and make the toilet sound because you're flushing money down the toilet.
That's exactly what it is.
Seriously, right?
So I bought my first house.
Okay.
So E3, Lance Corporal. I bought a $235,000 house, which I sold for $385,000.
Okay.
A few years later. That's the exception. That's not normal, but it was normal in the market that I bought in.
Right.
Now, you also had a great buying experience. Now, you were in a situation where you had dual BAHs.
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell me about your buying experience?
Well, actually, I didn't have dual BAHs.
Oh, you didn't?
Nope. Because at that particular time, I had transitioned into the reserves.
Okay.
And so my husband was still active duty. So we had single
Interesting.
BAH. So the BAH wasn't as much, but here's the deal. So, we just got married. We'd been renting for about 6 months. And I'm like, this is crazy. My husband and I talked. We kind of started our house hunting process down there in San Diego. We found very, very quickly it wasn't going to happen.
Sure.
Not on what we were making. So I was actually in the reserves doing my weekend duty one weekend, and there's this little Marietta or a little military paper, and there's an ad in there for a new home builder up in Marietta. So I called my husband, and the house price was like $235,000. I'm like, hey, we got to go up here and check this out. So drove up after duty, got up here, took us about 45 minutes or so, looked at the house, immediately put down our $1,000 deposit with the builder.
Sure.
Because it was a no-brainer at that point based on what we were paying. And we ended up purchasing the home. And so we both, my husband, I was still working in San Diego at that time. So we were both commuting to San Diego.
Sure.
So it made it worth it. Bought that in 2004, sold it for $525.
Yeah.
So
and that is abnormal. So what we've had is we've had a market that has been going like this. So in 2008, of course, the market crashed.
Yep.
Okay. Now, we've had a market that's been going like this for a long time. We've had rates that have went down 3 or 4 times last year alone. You've had no VA loan limit going forward. You've had increased FHA loan limits, some of the largest increases in history. So when you are looking at buying a house, you really should be looking at the monthly payment, whether or not you can make it, because what you might see is a market correction. And so what we've been seeing is 8%, 9%, 11% in increases year after year, which is not sustainable, which won't happen forever. Okay. So normally what you see about a 3% increase year after year, which is why it takes about 2 years after buying a house to be able to sell that house and be able to break even in a normal market. Now, that being said, we continue to be in this market that kind of continues to escalate. And so if you have a 9% increase in 1 year, and it costs about 6% to sell a home, 5% in commissions, 2.5% both sides, 1% in escrow and title, transfer fees, etc., 6%. That means that in 1 year, in that formula, which is the one that we were all experiencing, you would have a 3% ROI in 1 year. A 3% ROI. And when you break that down on a $400,000 home, a 3% ROI, that's $12,000. That's a lot of money that people are seeing an increase in a year.
And so, so you've got two things going on here. You've got, you're not throwing away rent anymore.
Correct.
And you're growing equity. And it's actually three things. And you're paying down your principal.
Yes.
Although you're paying less principal up front because a 30-year mortgage is amortized, you are paying it down little bit by little bit. So what happens year over year? Appreciation, is going to vary. We can't control that. But what you will control, you'll continue to pay down that balance.
So let's talk about that math here for a second.
Okay.
And this is one of those things, like if you're watching the VA Home Show, you're watching it because you want the deeper education in the real estate and lending process. If what you want is you want to be connected with a lender, you want to be connected with a local real estate agent, we will do that for you. Toby can help you with your loan. We can partner you with a great real estate agent. But if you want an education, you want to truly understand what this is, what this tool is, and how it can be utilized to help you and your family. That's what we do here. We're going to talk about math. We're going to talk about things that are going to make 97% of people make their eyes roll back in their head. Next week we're going to do something fun. We're going to talk about the family compound. And exactly how you can do that, different ways to do that. But this week we're going to continue to talk about math. This is for those big brains out there that are trying to understand this. So walk me through what you can see in your normal buy and hold process versus renting.
So when you say buy and hold, just to be clear, you like buy it. If you have to move on, you keep the property, rent it out.
Yes. And the reason why I talk about buy and hold is because most of us are in situations where you're getting new orders every 3 years. Okay. And so if you were to sell it, and you had a 3% average return on investment every year after year, and you're selling it in 3 years, you're going to make a little bit of money. Okay. And we've been exceeding that. But what I would like to talk about is you buy a house, you get orders in a year, you move, and instead of selling it, you rent it out. Do you get what I'm saying? And so what does that look like on the long term for somebody?
So that part gets me really excited because I think that this is a great idea, number one. But so let's just take, for example, a $400,000 home. You get orders somewhere else, you're leaving, you have to rent it out. We know that rent on that property, depending area, and we're going to do a very big blanket here, but $2,500. I would say that that's a fair amount of rent depending on the house.
Correct. And that's gone up. I can tell you that's gone up over $1,000. Because when I bought 10 years ago, and I'm telling you, just for the simple math of it, I mean, like, I was looking at it, I was thinking, okay, I could spend about $1,600, $1,500, all the way up to $1,700, $1,800 a month on rent, or I could buy for less than $1,500 at the time. And I bought for less than $1,500 a month.
And and I come to think about it, I was paying like 10 years ago. Well, really 20 years ago, it was,
And that's what happens.
The numbers start to add
in
up.
The economy, the numbers go up, inflation.
So you can rent your place out now for $2,500. Your payment's $2,434. You're still getting that appreciation every single year. You're now a landlord. Somebody else is paying your mortgage payment.
There's the flip.
Entirely. And you're growing equity. Your principal balance is getting paid down. You have an asset that you will have forever. And, we talked about California. We've been in double-digit appreciation for a long time. The last couple of years, we've seen it sink back into single digit. The average is 3%, which is what we talked about. So just basing it off 3%, you know that you're going to see in equity alone, not in principal pay down.
Correct.
You're going to see the $12,000 a year. Right? The other thing is you're collecting a little more rent. You would also be able to up that every single year as rent prices go up as well. So you're going to continue to grow equity, pay down your principal, and maybe even have a little bit of leftover money there.
Now, part of this is being you have to understand what an asset is.
Yes.
You have to understand what an asset is. And so there's some reading that you could do out there that would help you to understand some basic economics for those of you that aren't eggheads already. And one of those might be Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes.
And Rich Dad, Poor Dad does an excellent job of helping you to understand what an asset is. An asset is something that can make money for you.
Yep.
Versus something that you are working on in order to make money.
Yep. So many things here, and I don't want to go too deep because we only have a set amount of time, but something we can go into down the line is, okay, so you're transferring, you need to buy another house, right?
Yep.
So you may have enough eligibility left over that you could purchase another home, a VA home, because you can use your VA multiple times. It all revolves around the amount of entitlement that you have left. So there's that. But you could always, the current home refinance into a conventional for you to be
so that's what I did.
Yeah.
So when we were seeing 8% to 11% year after year in Riverside County in growth, and the reason why I give these numbers out is I want you to look at them. I'm not giving you fuzzy math. I'm giving you the real deal because I trust you with it. I trust you to understand that what I'm doing is I believe in home buying.
Yep.
And part of what I want you to understand is the economic freedom that comes along with home buying and not stretching yourself thin. And that's why this show is so crucial to me. And right now I am going to go off on a little bit of a tangent because we're getting ready to end this show and tell you about what's coming up here next week. But guys, this show is about the very foundations of freedom. The very foundations of freedom. What happened was sometime during the 1950s, post World War II, heading into the 1960s, we redefined what we decided to call the American dream. And the American dream was going out and buying a house that was not going to stretch you so thin that you were now poor, but set you up in a situation where you had economic freedom. Now, prior to the American dream, what happened was we had multi-generations living in one household. Okay, because that was what created wealth. That was what created stability. And so because of that, housing was, you could buy a house for $14,000, $20,000. Housing was cheaper now than what we're spending on our cars. And that was because we had the friendly local neighborhood banker who was holding your money and wanted to give you the deed to your house. They wanted nothing more than to pass off that deed to you and say, you are now a homeowner. Thank you for paying off your home. The friendly neighborhood banker has been replaced by these large banks, which are incentivized in seeing you foreclose because they take back the asset. The money stays where it is. It exchanges hands. And so the biggest thing that you can do to become free or as free as possible in this society where we plug everyone into the grid is to get a home, not stretch yourself thin, but then understand that that is an asset that then can help you to accumulate wealth, pay off that home, let other people pay that home off for you. That's why we're talking about the family compound next week. What we've done in California specifically is we have exchanged the freedoms for Gestapo-like principles. Local senators like Senator Stone, who was recently took a new cabinet seat, brought about predatory programs like HERO, which absolutely devastated individuals and microeconomies everywhere. They were told that they would be able to sell their home, and then that this predatory program, which had an average of 8% to 11% interest rates that people were paying for green energy, was backed by these Republican senators. And so people decided that they could do this and that they would pass it on. Well, now this program is deemed predatory. And now this program they've determined by law that you have to pay it off in order to transfer the sale of your house. And so it's devastated the individual. And so what I think that we should do is we need to understand that. And this is why we're going to talk about compounds next week. The individual getting towards individual freedom, the family living on a compound, groups of people living together on a compound, questing for individual freedom. Because when you install that $20,000 to $30,000 solar program on your house, you're still on the grid. Those rolling blackouts happen in California. Your lights are still going out. What can you do? to get completely off the grid. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. What can you do to obtain real freedom?
Yep.
Financial freedom. Darren Campbell, one of the great intellectual leaders, I think, right now, of in entrepreneurship and capitalism. The seven-figure syndicator himself said financial freedom is freedom. And one of the ways that I've been able to create financial opportunities for myself and financial freedom for myself and for my family is through real estate. Any words in closing? I apologize for my soapbox. I know that's supposed to be on the Wednesday Wake Up Live, but
no,
I'm passionate.
I know. And you know what? And I love the things that we talked about today. Wealth accumulation, assets, those are things, that's how you achieve the freedom.
That's right.
That is the way that you achieve the freedom. So we're just going to keep educating everybody on that. And I'm super excited about the family compound.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's something we've had conversations about offline. And so I'm excited to share it with everybody.
We're going to bring those conversations online. We're going to talk about it with you guys here next week on the VA Home Show. I appreciate you tuning in. If you are watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button to Real Estate Network Television for full updates on the Wednesday Wake Up Live, the VA Home Show, and the Open House Show. If you need to buy or sell real estate anywhere in the country, please feel free to contact us, and we will set you up with a real estate professional that can help you out, and a fantastic lender that can help you out wherever you are in the country. If you are watching this on Facebook, I encourage you to hit the like button. Share this out. This information is good information for everybody out there. And if you are just finding the VA Home Show, this will be the part of the show where we now have those four fancy little banners that are going to pop up. And I'm going to tell you, feel free to check out the Wednesday Wake Up Live.
Yep.
It's a great show.
It is.
Feel free to watch more of the VA Home Show.
Yep.
Check out some more Open House Show. Yep. And of course, subscribe to Real Estate Network Television. Everybody have a very good week. And we will see you next week on the VA Home Show.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.